Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm sure as you know by now, the Tickle v Giggle case was concluded early Friday morning, Sydney time. In case you are unfamiliar with the case, here is a brief summary.
Sall Grover is the founder of a female-only networking app called Giggle, which she wanted to be a kind of safe space for women. And when a transgender activist called Roxanne Tickle tried to join, Grover said no. And Tickle is now taking it to the federal court claiming discrimination. But Grover now plans to go all the way with a constitutional challenge, if she must, to defend her right to have an app just for biological women. And Sall Grover joins me now. Great to see you again. What is the argument you are going to put to the court?
So the initial claim was gender identity discrimination, and now it's gender identity and intersex discrimination. So it's sort of ever evolving. But this case is about sex, it's not about gender. I discriminated on the basis of sex. A woman is an adult human female, and that was accepted by everybody until men decided that they wanted to be women. And the only way for a female-only space to exist is if it excludes males. So we're going to be arguing that. And then also that CEDAW, which was created to protect women from all forms of discrimination, does not cite gender identity as an innate attribute of being a woman, which is now, basically a fancy way of saying men are not women.
Exactly right. So it seems to be a court decision. Courts are going to be asked to decide what a woman really is, to see whether you're discriminated against one, it seems to me.
So she was taken to court by this individual because her app was for females only. And it was argued in court that this was discrimination according to the Sex Discrimination Act. And unfortunately, although it is called the Sex Discrimination Act, it was altered in 2013 and essentially erased women. And guess who was responsible for that? The first Australian female Prime Minister.
Cole, I can't remember the last time a bunch of women protested at any trans or pride event, but it happens the other way all the time now.
Yes, that's right, Peter. It seems that actual women like you, me and Moira, have less rights than trans women. And Peter, it's really important to keep reminding everyone out there watching at home how this happened. This happened because of Julia Gillard's government when they amended the Sex Discrimination Act in 2013 and deleted the meaning of the word woman. They repealed the meaning of the word woman. They took it out of the act. So that's who we have to blame. You know, Julia Gillard, who everyone holds up as the feminist icon, she is responsible, and her government is responsible for leaving women in the situation that we currently are.
So Sall was sued for alleged gender discrimination because she wouldn't open the app to men who identified as women. One of the most iconic moments of the trial was when she refused to refer to the applicant. In the UK we say plaintiff, but I believe they call him the applicant. She refused to refer to this person as a woman. She didn't use she, her pronouns, and she refused to agree that this person was a woman. So the lawyer asked, "You have previously said that you would be kind to Miss Tickle if you met her in real life." Sall? Yes. Lawyer? Would you call her Miss Tickle? Sall? No, I would not. Lawyer? But that's not kind, is it? Sall? I don't think it's kind to expect a woman to see a man as a woman. Lawyer? Miss Tickle is a woman, isn't she? Sall? Tickle is a biological male. Then the lawyer said, even where a person who was assigned male at birth transitions to a woman by having surgery, hormones, gets rid of facial hair, undergoes facial reconstruction, grows their hair long, wears makeup, wears female clothes, describes themselves as a woman, introduces themselves as a woman, uses female changing rooms, changes their birth certificate. You don't accept that is a woman, do you? Sall? No. The lawyer says, I suggest to you that in Australian society, the normal meaning of a woman is someone who has changed their birth certificate to say woman. What would you say to that? Sall? I don't agree. And apparently the lawyer became quite agitated at this point and basically chose a different line of questioning. But do you see how that lawyer views women Nothing more than makeup, long hair, and lashes. Well, maybe he didn't mention lashes, but you know what I mean. So the trial was concluded with Roxanne being awarded 10,000 Australian dollars plus costs. The costs were capped at $50,000. But the judge said that Roxanne had been discriminated against after being denied access to the women-only app. So Justice Robert Bromwich said the respondents considered sex to mean the unchangeable sex of a person at birth. Yeah? But the judge said that those arguments failed because they conflict with a long history of cases that the courts have decided over 30 years. And he asserted that these cases apparently showed that sex is changeable. That's right. Apparently sex is changeable. So it's unreasonable to see a man as a man, apparently, because sex can be changed. We're not talking about gender identity here. He is saying that biological sex, because that's what sex is biological, is changeable. So I looked into the cases that the judge is referencing here, and I also got sent some information. Thank you to all the people who've been sending me information. So there were some cases involving transsexuals, but they were allowed to engage in something that was only pertaining to a man and a woman. For example, marriage. Gay marriage was only legalised in Australia in 2017. But there have been cases of same-sex couples, so technically they're the same sex, but if one identifies as a man, just say like two women, if one of the women identifies as a man, there have been cases where that couple were allowed to get married despite same-sex marriage being illegal at the time, because one of them identified as a man. And there are cases involving transsexual men who identify as women being recognised as women legally for the purposes of social security, to the point where they decided that the man who identifies as a woman is a woman. They considered this person to be a woman. So that technically meant that they were a lesbian couple, because there were benefits that you would lose if you were a cohabiting couple, like a common law couple. So if we have a man and a woman living together for a number of years, technically that would be considered a cohabiting couple. But in this case, the man identified as a woman, so they were regarded as a lesbian couple. So they didn't lose some of their social security benefits. So this is what the judge is referring to. But in my opinion, that doesn't mean that sex is changeable, obviously. It means Australia has a history of putting identity before biological sex. That's what that means. It doesn't mean that sex is changeable. I mean, if that's the route he's going to go down, then clearly the court system is not living in reality. So the cases the judge is referring to state that a person can legally change their gender, even if it differs from their biological sex. Obviously, identity seems to be a big deal in Australia and many Western countries. So that's what we're dealing with here. It's identity superseding biological sex. And what Sall was arguing is that there are consequences to that. Consequences to females, consequences to people who are actually of that biological sex. If you start allowing anybody to fall into that definition, definition of a woman, that is going to hurt women, biological females. And the courts of all systems should be protecting women.
Yeah, I mean, law is supposed to reflect reality. And in reality, this person is a male. So, I mean, you can make a court believe something, I suppose, but you're not going to make me believe it. So to be punished for acknowledging biological sex, I think puts all Australians at risk of being punished for having human instincts.
So Roxanne successfully sued for alleged unlawful gender identity discrimination in the provision of services contrary to Section 22 of the Sex Discrimination Act, 1984, I believe.
This case and the unlawful and discriminatory exclusion from the Giggle app has stolen the last 3 years of my life. I've been targeted by hateful and online commentary and degrading merchandise designed to ridicule and mock me. There is so much hate and bile cast on trans and gender diverse people simply because of who we are. Sometimes it's difficult to remember that not all people are like that. When I walked into the courtroom for the hearing in April, I felt safe because I was treated with courtesy and respect and allowed to tell my story. I'm pleased by the outcome of my case, and I hope it is healing for trans and gender diverse people. The ruling shows that all women are protected from discrimination. I brought my case to show trans people that you can be brave and that you can stand up for yourself.
So it always seems to be the entitled male who is considered the victim in all of this. I mean, you saw there, Roxanne was surrounded by women being very sympathetic towards, this person's cause, which is to take away women-only spaces and infringe upon those spaces. But despite that, the male is always going to be seen as the victim for some reason. But it was Sal who had to deal with all sorts of vile threats.
I remember when we first got the idea and we were thinking, like, how would this even be possible to make an online space just for women? And when we found out that there was this technology that we could use, my thought was, oh, well, that's the least controversial way to do it, because everyone takes selfies all the time. And you can just tell, like, we walk down the street every day, not even realizing that we're registering that's a man, that's a woman, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so beyond, like, just subconscious second nature, whatever. So I was really excited. I didn't know that we had so blindly yet perfectly walked into this sex versus gender war where people were saying that any man could say he was a woman and be accepted as that. I mean, you couldn't have planned it better. And so I'm not sure exactly how the trans activists found us, but they did in that testing phase. And because we didn't have all of, like, the onboarding features set to how they were going to be for launch or anything, just we were inundated with thousands upon thousands of men who created profiles saying kill TERFs and rape TERFs and whatnot. And so that's how I was introduced to the term TERF. And they left reviews on the App Store and Google Play, like thousands of them saying you're transphobic and whatnot. So
these were the messages she was receiving and the sabotage that occurred where they tried to sabotage her business, trying to get the app shut down or basically ruin the launch of the app. So when launching the app, it became apparent that males who identify as women and the rights of females conflict with each other. You're going to have women on that app talking about how upset they are about their spaces being taken, how upset they are about their sports being infringed upon. So how will that work when there's men on the app too who identify as women, who are guilty of those very things? How would it work having people on the app who are threatening women, who are wishing death upon women? How would that work having those people on the app? So she tightened the selection process using a software. She tightened it, and basically this person got excluded from the app and clearly wasn't happy about it, and is now, as far as I'm concerned, punishing Sal for having the audacity to say that this app is for women only. So Sal announced that she had lost the case with a simple tweet saying, "Unfortunately, we got the judgment we anticipated. The fight for women's rights continues. #Tickle v Giggle." Now, in saying that this is what we anticipated and the fight continues, she's confirming every intention of appealing this decision. She was prepared for this and always intended to take it all the way. And she wasn't going to let losing stop her from continuing the fight.
Great to see you, Sal. Now, to be honest, this was a loss in the court, but to be honest, I think you were kind of expecting this loss, was my understanding. Tell us how you feel about it now that it's all over, and where to from here.
Well, first of all, I have to say it wasn't a Queensland court; it was the Federal Court of Australia. Right. And yes, it was a verdict that we had anticipated due to the legislation as it currently is, because in 2013, under Julia Gillard's government, our first female Prime Minister, who has dined out on that fact for a decade, brought in amendments to allow gender identity into the Sex Discrimination Act, thereby allowing men to be considered women and essentially rendering the entire act completely useless. So how do I feel? I feel absolutely devastated. I mean, it's not even a professional issue. This is personal. I'm a woman and I want to have rights, and I want every single woman and girl in Australia, in the world, to have rights. And so basically to be told at this point that we have less rights than a man who claims to be a woman is a pretty devastating place to be.
Rita.
And I it can't end here, Sally. This is too important. Is this going to go to the High Court? Are you going to take this all the way to make sure we have these protections for women and girls in Australia? Because I know there's people around the world looking on in disbelief about what's happening in this country.
Yeah, I've said from the very beginning, when it was just an Australian Human Rights Commission complaint, that I would take it as far as I needed to, and always knowing that the High Court was really potentially where this was going to end up, because either side would have appealed based on what this decision was. So yeah, I will be appealing and going all the way with it, because, you know, our fight has always been that sex is a biological reality. It's a biological concept. And what we have now been told is that sex is changeable, that it's just a legal concept, that it's this ordinary meaning of sex is that it can be changed. And that's just not how it is in reality in society. In society, the ordinary meaning of sex is biological. That's how we make decisions. That's how lives are lived. That it just can't be that the law does not reflect society so drastically like it currently is.
And this case is estimated to cost up to 1.2 million Australian dollars. Anybody who is able to continue donating, I encourage you to do so, because obviously it isn't over. Far from it. During the 3 years of the Tickle v Giggle legal battle, I was pregnant, something only women can do. Found out the sex of my baby at 20 weeks, not assigned at birth. Now I have a daughter. My determination to ensure women and girls have rights has only strengthened. And that's it. Anybody who has daughters, nieces, goddaughters, we're thinking of their future.
The GoFund page for Giggle. Also, what about Giggle, the app? I mean, right, I remember that all those years ago we were encouraging people to get onto the app. How is the app going, and what can people do, what can women do to get onto the app and to help you?
Well, the app has actually been offline for the past 2 years, so a man who claims to be a woman couldn't even use it right now if he wanted to, because women can't actually use it. It's been closed down because of this case. We're waiting until until basically that Australia will allow a company by women for women to run. At the moment, we're not allowed. So when they have these government initiatives for like female startups and female founders, if you're actually doing something for females, you're not allowed to do it.
What a tragedy.
The app will eventually be back, but it will always be. The app will be back. In the meantime, we want people to go to the Giggle GoFundMe page to help Sall Grover there.
So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.